large eastern cities, even though it's really by all standards now a very mid-sized city. But when you get down past Cleveland, down into Columbus and then Cincinnati, you're really starting to deal with the South in many ways, which is not better or worse, but just different. I mean, just a different sensibility. And so a lot of the large teams grew up in the northern part of Ohio. And then, of course, in Columbus, you have Ohio State and some great basketball, football. It is a sports. It's a sports state.
The Cincinnati Reds. I mean, they
absolutely.
had their
Absolutely.
But on the literary side, Larry, and I don't know if I'm sure this isn't your genre, but I can't think of literary giants from Ohio, and I'm probably missing some, but nobody comes to mind.
Yeah, not immediately, do they? It's interesting. I'm certain that there are actually some names that are floating through my mind, but once again, not necessarily in my field.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there have been some.
All the literary giants are from Lee's neck of the woods.
That's
right. You are.
Male and female.
How is the name change going over with the Cleveland Indians?
It is as you expected. I would say it's just about 50-50. Half the fans understand the reason why that happened and are grateful and are thinking that maybe this will be the end of the curse for the Cleveland Indians. And the other half are absolutely adamant and refuse to believe that there is any bigotry or whatever involved in it. It's just a name, they say, and so I don't think the twain will ever meet. I think you're going to have people wearing Cleveland Indians shirts to the Cleveland Guardians games for many, many, many years. Yeah.
That would happen in Atlanta if the Braves were changed.
Absolutely, I think, and so gear up Atlanta because it's probably coming there too.
Oh yeah, it probably is. It probably is.
Yeah, in a matter of time. Well, folks, I think we're live and on air. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rare Book Cafe, the Book Lovers Rendezvous. I'm your host, Ed Markowitz. I drew the short straw again. From Montgomery Rare Books in Portland, Oregon. The Rare Book Cafe is the only weekly video program on the internet devoted entirely to rare and collectible books and the whole book ecosystem and the people who love those books, and that's YOUU. Thanks for joining us. We're here every Saturday from 12:30 Eastern Daylight Time. That's 5:30 Greenwich Mean Time. But we're here all day, every day, 24/7. We're on YouTube and Facebook, streaming as a video, or you can find us at your favorite podcast hotel, Rare Book Cafe Raw. And don't forget our email, rarebookcafe@gmail.com. Send us your comments, or while you're watching this show on Facebook, leave us a comment down there in that little square box that says comments. All right, my guests this week, they're on the screen with me right now. And first of all, my co-host, Lee Linn, Ridge Books, Calhoun, Georgia. Good morning, Lee.
Good morning.
And Larry Rakow from Cleveland, Ohio.
And Wonderland Books.
Hey. And Wonderland Books, thank you.
Yeah, get that plug in.
Yeah, and what's your website? Wonderlandbooks.com?
It is www.wonderland100.com. Is the numerals 100.
Got it. And one of these days we're going to have to show what those 100 books are.
I would love to do that someday.
Is that your list or a list from?
It is my list, and what I decided to do a while ago, because and this is nothing out of the ordinary for either of you, but with about 13,000 plus books in inventory right now, I decided to just select 100 remarkable books and put them up on the internet, sometimes with a theme, sometimes without. Just a miscellany, and leave them there for like
all
3
months.
All children's books. Yeah. Leave them up for 3, 4, 5 months, and then take that entire 100 down, put up another 100 remarkable books and see how they do. And that's what we do on the web.
All right. All right. Well, that's the best plug possible.
No.
Larry, there's something that you and I both have in common, and it's called The Little Red Hen.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm referring to?
I do know what you're referring to, but go right ahead, Ed.
A golden book. If I had to think of one prominent, salient, golden book that pops to mind first, there's a little book called The Little Red Hen, Golden Books, which came to life with Simon & Schuster in 1942. Yeah. And I think you're going to tell us a little bit about them today.
I would love to. Actually, there is so much to tell about little golden books. We should get that little out of there about little golden books, is that I think I'm going to spend the next 2 sessions doing this. We'll start today and we'll finish up next time around. And you're right, for us boomers and, you know, all of us, little golden books were a major, major part of our growing up. And I think—
How about you, Lee? Excuse me, Lee, which one do you sticks out in your memory?
Earlier, when we were trying to get the technology worked out, the one that comes to my mind popped up, which is the Pokey Little Puppy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just always been one of my favorites. It was one of my boys' favorites. Nothing against the Little Red Hen, but I love the Pokey Little Puppy. You want to pick him up and hug him.
Yes, good taste, Lee. Nicely done. It's true. I mean, for those of us of a certain age and well beyond that, I mean, little golden books were probably the first books that we received, the first books that were read to us. And one of the wonderful things about children's literature is that they do have this emotional component. I mean, we can care about Stephen King, we can care about, you know, other adult authors, but for many of us, those very first books that we read and loved are books that we both carry in our heart and want to share with our children, our grandchildren, and so on. And so little golden books. I will start this.
Well, there's not only there's not only the emotional attachment, but I mean, this is also big business. On their 50th anniversary, they had sold 1.5 billion books, and it's also brought some great authors and illustrators to life as well.
Absolutely, and I think we're going to be highlighting some of those today. You know, I always had a special feel for golden books in general. The very first book that I ever learned to read on, I remember this, you know, it's one of those moments. I remember I was 4 years old. I was up in bed. I was reading a book that my parents had read to me 1,000 times, and all of a sudden it clicked.
Ooh,
I understood what the words were. I understood what these letters meant. I understood how to put words together. And I remember hearing it was the Golden Egg book, like so.
Oh,
and
wow. It's a great anecdote.
It is. It's a terrific book, and I still have, again, just, you know, it goes straight to my heart. And so I always had this feeling about little golden books. And when I first started collecting pop-up and movable books, this was in the late 70s. I put an ad in the paper saying I'm looking for old pop-up and movable books. And somebody called me up and said, well, what I have are not pop-up and little and movable books. It's some sort of other thing, but you can come out here and take a look at them if you want. And so I did. And this
we all do.
Yes. He was handling his next door neighbor's estate, a woman who had died recently. And for reasons unknown to him and lost to history, this woman, who never married and never had any children, decided to buy little golden books starting in 1942 when they came out. And bought every single one from the very first through about 600 of them. And she would read them once and put them up on a shelf. And that was it. Pristine. And I paid what I thought was a ridiculous amount of money for that. And, well, I should say my wife thought was a ridiculous amount of money for that at that point. And but that started my real interest in little golden books and researching them. So let's see.
One more quick question before you go to the presentation. You said she started collecting them in 1942. The first ones came out, I think, but that was the war years.
It was absolutely, and it was a
How did something like
consequence.
this, develop during that time?
It was a consequential time for children's publishing also, because we had come out of the Depression not too long before that,
Yeah.
and children's books in general at that time cost between $1.50 and $2, which was a
Ooh.
substantive amount of
Yeah.
money for a
Yeah.
middle-class family at that point.
For
In
sure.
point of fact, publishers did not publish or promote children's books throughout the entire year at that point. It was generally considered that the only time a child would receive a children's book was either at Christmas time, the holidays, or for his or her birthday.
Excuse me, Larry, do you have any idea what these books might have cost when they were first came out in 1942?
Absolutely. In 1942, the first 12 Little Golden Books were issued. Each one cost 25 cents, which is remarkable. I mean, that was a price that families, middle-class families, perhaps families that had never bought a book for their children, could afford. And they did. They did in unbelievable quantities. They also offered Little Golden Books in places that real families went. The only time that a family could buy a book for their children previous to that was in a bookstore.
Sure.
And there were many, perhaps a majority of families in the United States at that point who would have felt a little awkward going into a bookstore. This was not something that they usually did. But what Little Golden Books did was place these in supermarkets, in 5 and 10 cent stores, in hardware stores, in
Woolworths,
and dimes, where people actually went, and it was an unbelievable success. They also published them in huge numbers. The average run for a book, children's book or adult book at that point, was usually between 2,500 and 5,000 copies as a first edition.
Larry, I have about 10 questions I want to ask you, but you're probably going to answer them with what you had ready to share with us. So you go ahead and
I'm going to go and do that.
Way.
Let's go and see how the technology works today. We will start up and attempt to share screens.
Wow, because that's amazing finding them in such pristine condition, because obviously
really
they're so susceptible, the little golden spine.
Yep,
it
truly is.
Roughing and scratching.
Truly is. Can you see the books up here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I have a question for you, and particularly for Lee, which is, what is the most popular children's book ever published? That is, which book has more copies in print than any other book? Could it be The Cat in the Hat, or Where the Wild Things Are? Perhaps something recent like If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, or the Harry Potter books? Any ideas?
Well, I would have two guesses. One would be Where the Wild Things Are. The other would be Goodnight Moon.
No, actually, you're wrong, Lee. It's the Pokey
Little Puppy. Well, that's wonderful.
That is the most popular children's book ever created.
Yeah.
You didn't ask me.
What?
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
Before we go on. Why did they do the gold spines? Do you know? And were they affected by wartime paper restrictions if they were printing in such large numbers?
An excellent question, and I think I will answer some of that during the conversation. Okay. One of the remarkable things about the books when they first came out in 1942 was how fortunate they were to have several occurrences, one of which was the impending war and the plight of artists in Europe. So all of a sudden, one of the things that always sort of fascinated me about Little Golden Books, in part because of the response that many children's book dealers had to them initially, was, oh, these are just throwaways. These are little books that didn't last. They really didn't attract very much talent. But in point of fact, there were remarkable authors and illustrators who emigrated from Europe, some Jewish, some not, but fleeing the Nazis and fascism, who arrived in the United States just before the time, that is 1942, that the first Little Golden Books came along. Amongst them was Tibor Gergely, whose first work really was done for little golden books, including things like The Taxi That Hurried and Five Little Firemen. Also, Fyodor Rozhankovsky. Here he's pictured with his daughter surrounded by golden books and other books that he did. A major children's illustrator who did things like The Three Bears and Gaston and Josephine, which actually appeared first, I think, as a Harper Brothers book, but was later reissued as a little golden book. Gustav Tengren, who did The Pokey Little Puppy and Little Black Sambo, one of those books that is actually eagerly sought now, which many people remember in this particular format. So in 1942, Simon & Schuster came out and announced that they were going to be working with Western Publishing at that point and issuing the first series of 25-cent books for children, the Little Golden Books. What were they? The Three Little Kittens, Mother Goose, Bedtime Stories, Prayers for Children, The Alphabet from A to Z, The Little Red Hen, Ed, Nursery Songs, Baby's Book, The Pokey Little Puppy, once again, and The Animals of Farmer Jones, along with the Golden Book of Fairy Tales and This Little Piggy. Now, what were the characteristics of these first 12 little golden books? First of all, one thing you may not realize is that they all had dust jackets. You can see, especially Lee at this point, the spine of the actual book on the right is a solid blue paper spine. But we're seeing the dust jacket on the left, which has a very familiar intertwining vine, which became the symbol of little golden books. The emphasis was placed on the Little Golden Book name, not Simon & Schuster, but the Little Golden Book name. For instance, on each of the Little Golden Books, here we see the Animal of Farmer Jones again, Little Golden Book is prominent on the title. They never mentioned their authors or illustrators, only on the title page. Here, again, Rudolf Freund, just on the title page, not on the cover of the book or the spine of the book, as is common nowadays. Oh, I hope I do not sound too sexist here. I'm going back to my earliest days collecting baseball cards and Davy Crockett cards. I love sets that are numbered, that come in sequential numerical order. And that's what Little Golden Books did. Here in an early dust jacket, you'll see next to each one of the books is a numeral. That was prominently displayed on the cover of the book. Look in the upper right-hand corner, and there's 178. The 25 is 25 cents, of course. And finally, they did something absolutely brilliant for young kids. They put an ownership bookplate. Here inside the front cover of a Little Golden Book is a printed bookplate. This Little Golden Book belongs to, and you could write your name in it, make it yours. You know, after that first influx of remarkable talent from Europe preceding the Second World War, they continued to create an wide range of new illustrators and authors to contribute to the Little Golden Book canon. Here, for example, is Elizabeth Orton Jones, who had won a Caldecott in 1945 for Prayer for a Child, but she contributed things like Little Red Riding Hood with wonderful, wonderful illustrations. One of the most famous Little Golden Book illustrators, Eloise Wilkin, was known for her chubby-cheeked, lovely children. Here, Fix It Please, we get 2 for the price of 1 in the twins. Somebody like Leonard Weisgard was also a Caldecott winner. Here's Little Island, 1947 Caldecott Medal winner, written by Golden MacDonald, a pseudonym for Margaret Wise Brown. But Weisgard also illustrated the Golden Egg Book, which we mentioned earlier. Once there was a little bunny. He was all alone. And Margaret Wise Brown, of course. Two Little Gardeners was one of her little golden books, as well as The Train to Timbuktu. Richard Scarry, here seen in the middle of the photograph, contributed books. Margaret Wise Brown wrote Two Little Miners. This was Richard Scarry's first published book, as well as Duck and His Friends and many, many other little golden books. And one of the people who you probably don't know or may not know is Mary Blair, a name that doesn't stand out perhaps with the others that we've mentioned. She wrote I Can Fly, but you probably have seen her work and know her as the originator of It's a Small World After All at Disney World and Disneyland. Finally, Garth Williams, best known, of course, for Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little, but contributed wonderful little golden books like Mr. Dog and The Friendly Book. A lot of this information, by the way, can be found in Golden Legacy, a book by Leonard Marcus, a writer who I have a great deal of admiration for, and has written really the book on little golden books. So that is the introduction this week to little golden books. We'll continue with some collector's tips for little golden books next time around.
Excellent, Larry. That was fascinating. All those different personalities that were associated with little golden books at one time or another.
It really was remarkable. The story of how they did it is so convoluted. In that book that I mentioned last, The Golden Legacy, he really goes into detail on how these disparate aspects of American publishing at that point all just happened to come together to create little golden books. But it's a remarkable story and one that all of us benefited from.
Well, it was interesting to hear about Mary Blair because I went to Disney World this spring, and those are just amazing. They are just amazing.
She did a lot of work for Disney, Lee, and
just great stuff.
And now for the rest of the day, I'm going to have an earworm. It's a small world.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I know.
Yeah.
It gets stuck.
Yeah, we wrote it twice to get out of the heat.
The best time I ever had at Disney World was I knew one of the editors who worked at Hyperion, which was a Disney company at that point. And she invited me to go to Disney World with her. And we went, and she had this wonderful badge. And whenever she showed the badge, you went to the front of the line and you just went in the next ride without waiting at all. It was great.
I got to tell you what I really respect, Larry, and that's the work that you put into these presentations and your knowledge. Folks, we bring you some really fabulous guests here at the Rare Book Cafe. These people really know their stuff, whether it's bookbinders or children's books or historical figures. You are getting it straight from the experts here at the show.
Yes, we learn every week. We learn new things every week.
I think all of us do.
I'm sponging this up. All right, Larry, so you're going to be back, give us this part 2, and that's about collecting and tips and advice.
Absolutely. We'll go and take it from a different tack next time around.
All right, looking forward to it, Larry. Let us know when that is.
I will do.
Uh-oh, we've got Richard Mori up on the screen. I haven't seen Richard live and in living color for a while.
Don't go away, Larry. I had something I want to share with you and everybody. So you brought up one of my very favorites, Little Red Riding Hood. And in my book career, I had the pleasure of knowing Elizabeth Orton Jones. She lived just one town over from me. I visited her at her home, and I would get her to talk. And one of the stories she shared with me was, of course, she did Little Red Riding Hood is 1942, I think it is, on the date, on the copyright. But in fact, and I remember it, a price on that book at 19 cents. So maybe they had the price change at some point. But in fact, she received a penny royalty per book. With that penny royalty, she bought her first home.
Oh,
Okay, in Mason, New Hampshire, which, if you go to the second page of the Golden Book, the signpost reads, pointing to Mason, New Hampshire,
That's
and
cool.
the house that the grandmother lived at is now known as Pickety Place. It still exists, and the wood setting is exactly the same as it was in that is in the picture. And it's now a restaurant, and you park your car in between the trees, literally. Um, it's a fascinating place to go to. Very popular with mothers and daughters. Um, they have the herbal gardens and things there. And in their gift shop, they have a 4-poster bed that is in the Little Red Riding Hood story.
Incredible.
Wow. Great
So,
stuff.
are the waiters in wolf costumes?
I'm sorry, you're echoing.
Are the waiters in wolf costumes?
No, no, that's actually the bed. They do sell copies of the book there, but the bed is the only homage to the Little Red Riding
Okay.
Hood story.
Very good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Larry. Adios, amigo.
Take care. See everybody next time around.
Always. So, Richard, we've missed you live for the last couple of weeks. You were bouncing around New England. I think you hit 4 of the 6 New England states. And you're back from New York. And what have you got for us today?
Well, I am back from New York. Unfortunately, the reason you couldn't hear from me is because I had no phone service in the middle of New York State. T-Mobile does not work in the town of Bouckville.
Bouckville.
So,
Lee, we got it now. Bouckville.
Bouckville. Yep. So, but anyway,
Lee and I were unsure of the correct pronunciation.
Yeah. And we did send in some video. So I think Alan used a little bit of that, but it was a fun time and a good trip. So in the meantime, I've had to do some digging in my warehouse. I'm moving some things, and
that must be a trip of a whole different kind, huh?
Well, I don't think you have enough program time for me to go into this in any depth. But I couldn't help. I uncovered some boxes. If you've been in the business 35 years, and I think Ed and Lee, you have both probably been in a little longer than that. You have things that kind of separate from the normal routine, and years or decades, in my case, later, they resurface, and you go, "Oh my God, where did that go? I still own it. I can't believe." Well, I've had some of those moments this week. So I thought, since I'm preparing for Brimfield, and it's a week from this coming Tuesday, I thought I would share a couple of these things with you. One of the first things I found is, I got to dig it out of my plastic bag I put it in. One of the first things I found, and I've sent Alan some pictures he'll put up, but this is a leaf. Do you recognize this at all? It's a King James New Testament.
Oh, there we go.
A single page. There's no red in this because there was no red. And in fact, this is from a 1611 King James Bible.
Oh, wow.
And let's just remind our folks here that in the book world, there's a term called incunabula, and incunabula is usually almost always referring to items which were printed between Gutenberg's Bible up to 1500, so the first 50 years of printing. So this is within 120 years of the first printing.
Yes. So it's of course the King James Bible has a great history and story to it as to why it came into existence. That's what could be done another time. But in fact, individual leaves from certain books do have some value. Obviously, leaves from the Gutenberg Bible, they have shown up on the market. And sometimes these books are intentionally broken, and sometimes they're not. And
I would like
don't
to say
know.
that most book dealers do not support
Sorry.
the excising of leaves from books.
Right, right. But in fact, commercially, that has been done.
Yes, it did
And
quite a bit
and
in the early century.
yeah, and so in fact, this one does come with a copy of the original title page to the 1611 New Testament. Um, and like I know for a fact that the years ago, back in the 90s, the Colorado Springs Public Library bought a single leaf from a Gutenberg Bible so that they could claim to have something from the first printed Bible. And that cost them, I believe, $25,000 at that time.
So, Richard, you're telling me this thing's been sitting in a box in your warehouse for a while?
Yeah, this is sitting in a box. You know what? I probably should be ashamed of myself, but I'm probably too vain to be ashamed. I just. But let me grab the other
Let me
thing.
know when you need some help cleaning out your trailer.
Well,
what do you have? Just a public storage warehouse or a trailer?
No,
you load it.
I have almost 3,000 square feet, Ed.
Oh my goodness!
You can do the math. So, now, not everything you put away is of value, but there's some things that you just want to keep enjoying. So this came out of the same box, literally. It's I'm sure the three of us we can remember watching the Mickey Mouse Club in the 50s. I know I did. Every day came home from school.
Yeah.
So in fact, this is the original crew. I'm trying to think. Yep, she's back.
Annette Funicello.
And Annette's in the back row. Ooh, here.
She's my favorite.
Yeah, and Bobby's here, and Johnny. Those are the ones we remember the most. And these are not valuable. This would have been actually it folds up and it creates a stand so that this was used as a promo piece for the home videos. So obviously this was not done in the 50s. This was actually done in I think probably in the late 70s, early 80s as a promo piece for early Disney videos. I actually there are 4 of them in there. Not expensive items. I think they're like $25 each, something like that. The other item I found.
Are we still in the same box?
In the same box, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I thought I'd keep it kind of a theme going here. So in fact, I get requests all the time for motorcycle catalogs. And in fact, I say to them, yeah, I have some, and I have some early ones, but I couldn't tell them where. Well, now, but so now I know where this one is, and this will be going with me to Brimfield. This is a 1915 motorcycle catalog. Wow. Fascinating. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. It's the 12th annual catalog in 1915. So this actually has a number to it. This is I think it's $200 I think it's about $200 on this one. Matter of fact, I think it's 270. No, I'm sorry. Back up. Yeah, it's $200. That's what it is. So,
well, now you need to find the other first 11 editions.
Yeah,
which are probably in a different box.
I wish I had the other, because I'll tell you, the first 2 or 3 would be 4 figures, for sure. Nice. So this is something you may not recognize because this was actually done in 1936 by the National Geographic Society. This is the first photo taken of the division between the troposphere and the stratosphere, and it shows the actual curvature of the Earth from an elevation of 72,395 feet. And it was published by National Geographic in May of 1936. So this is probably done, I believe, with a balloon. I think it mentions it. There's a nice story here. It goes with it. It's in black and white, and it's the Black Hills of South Dakota is roughly where this was taken. Not an
That will go
expensive.
quickly at the next ephemera fair.
Yep, that I think it would be a very good one. Matter of fact, just a little footnote. I heard that the Paper Mania in Hartford took place this past weekend. Speaking of ephemera fairs, and while the attendance I think was down and the number of dealers was down, one of my friends told me that he had the best buying show of his life. So
Whoa.
what? and he's been in the business longer than I have, so that is a major statement when he says it. So so the fairs are still going, and the events are still happening, and stuff is coming into the market, and I'll be bringing all of this material to Brimfield plus a whole lot more.
And when is that show going to be?
Brimfield starts the Tuesday after Labor Day.
Tuesday after that'll be let's check out the date
I
here
think
for
that's the 7th.
our listeners.
I think it's the
7th.
7th. All right.
Yeah. And
Brimfield, Massachusetts, starting.
Brimfield, yep. And it goes right through the Sunday. And I'm on the 12th, and there's an antique center, a big building in the middle of town that is a year-round business. And I have the pleasure and opportunity to be on the porch. You'll see a big sign out front that say postcards and another one that says books. A friend of mine is doing the postcards, and I'll be doing the books and the ephemera.
Are you taking that King James leaf to Brimfield?
You've echoed on me, Lee. I didn't hear it.
I don't know. Are you taking the King James leaf to Brimfield?
Yeah, I am going to take the King James leaf to Brimfield. Yes. Yeah. And I actually have a number of customers who come through there who are interested in early Bibles and religious material.
Yeah.
So there'll be, and I know I'll have somebody come through on the motorcycles, and I'll have somebody come through on the Disney, and I'll have actually 2 boxes, at least 2 full boxes or more of golden books, including some of the ones and jackets. And Larry didn't, I don't think he mentioned in his talk, but I know that he'll probably mention next week, is that there are activity books in the golden book world, which are extremely hard to find, complete and very desirable. Dan and the Band-Aid Man, Dr. Dan and the Band-Aid Man, Nurse Nancy, those both had Band-Aid strips in the books, very hard to find, complete. There were puzzle books. I happen to own the Little Red Riding Hood Golden Puzzle book that I bought back in the 90s, signed by Elizabeth Orton Jones. Even though I could get things signed, this one was at an auction, signed already, and it cost me $400.
Ooh.
And it's still a prize, and I've refused a lot more money for it because I knew Elizabeth, and it was a personal favorite. But
we've all got those personal favorites.
Yeah.
We price them out of reach because we're not in a hurry to sell them. my first edition Kerouac on the Road is like that.
Oh yeah. It's because I was in southern New Hampshire with my bookstore, I actually knew some of the Kerouac family. Yeah, They used to come into the bookstore.
Well, I want to hear those stories someday. He's my favorite author, and I'm a huge fan.
Well,
and Richard, you have the stories, whether they're on the road, out there in the public, at the shows, at the fairs, or at home outside of your 3,000 square feet of treasures. Always a pleasure to have you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here with you and Lee, and oftentimes I get to see Larry too. I'm looking forward to seeing him in Florida this winter, and I hope I'll see you too.
All right. Well, I don't know if you're going to be broadcasting from Brimfield, but I hope so, because You are a hoot when you are on the road.
Thank you, Ed.
All right,
Take
picking
care.
up where
Bye-bye.
Charles
Bye-bye.
Perrault left off, Richard Mori. All right, Lee, I think now it's time for one of the show's favorite phone-in segments or a video-in segments, things found in old books. I'll tell you what, this segment just continues to grow in popularity, whether it's here on the cutouts on Facebook. Uh, David Hess of the Bookman Bookstore in Orange, California, is building a bit of a cult of things that he finds in books as they traverse his store. In the back door, out the front, but somewhere in between, David opens up the covers and tells us what he has found. All right, welcome back, David. What did you find this week?
Hello, this is David from the Bookman in Orange, California, and I welcome you to another segment of Things Found in Old Books. I think I found some interesting things this week that I would like to share with you. We'll start off with this book called Zone Reflex, published in 1942, and it's a softback, and it's about pressure points and massage therapy. And in the book, there was an enterprising student made some interesting notes. What they did is it's a little hard to see. We'll have pictures for you. What they did is they drew these faces and feet and made notes on where all the pressure points are, to the eye, to the knee, to the lung. You press these little buttons on your feet, and apparently you relieve pressure in different points of your body. We even have close-ups of feet. The thing is, these are all hand-drawn. They're hand-drawn with ink on paper, and no name, no date, and on the back some serious note-taking. And they've been actually sewn together along the top. So this is a very serious student of reflexology. I found that in this book here. I thought that was interesting. In this book, now this is a book all in German. Romantisch, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry. I had no idea of the German language. And it's about the seafaring. You can see by the pictures. Good thing they have pictures. But I'm in. In the book was this handwritten card to somebody. I guess it was a gift. It's dated October '69, and it's again all written in German. So I'm getting no insights from the card of what the book is for or what the gift is. And it's quite lengthy in its description. So I'm sure somebody out there speaks German. I'll take a picture of the card. Maybe you can tell me what it's about. And then included in the book also on seafaring was this picture of a train, a locomotive. So you got your seafaring book with a picture of a locomotive written in German with a German card. And I don't know what any of it means. That's the fun part. In this book, it's called Lettering for Advertising. It's a very nice book, and it's actually still desirable. It was written in 1952, and it must be a standard book for the advertiser in those days for lettering in your advertising. And in the book, I found, again, another hand-drawn picture. We'll take a good picture for you to see. A hand-drawn of this man sitting at a desk, and he's drawing away. He must be at the work table at his work. It's Steve. Steve is there at his work table and laboring away at his job. But at the bottom down here, it says pull. And so you pull it, and there's Steve at the beach with his wife and 2 kids. And having the time of his life, and he's reading in a newspaper now. So apparently Steve was going on vacation when one of his co-workers decided to draw a little card for Steve on his trip. I thought that was really fun, and the drawing style is really kind of reminiscent of the 50s. It's really cute. It's really well done. I liked it a lot. And finally, from the archives of the Bookman, of things that I found in books that I'd like to share with you. I don't have the book with me. It's been a while. Was this postcard? Now, postcards is a whole thing into itself. There's a huge postcard collecting society out there, and ephemera dealers know all about postcards. I don't. I just find them, put them away. So I got this card here. We got the little boy reading a newspaper. He's got his little dog, Sparky, there. He's smoking a pipe as well, the little boy. I guess in 1910, when this card was sent, maybe that was a common thing. Dogs and boys smoked pipes a lot back then. But this is a postcard from 1910. Sent hand stamped Liverpool, Texas, 1910. So this was sent from Liverpool, Texas to Velasco, Texas. Now Velasco has since been swallowed up by Freeport, and doing a little research, neither town was like more than 500 people per town. So it was very small population. The general text is, I hope you have fun on the 4th of July and write soon. So that's basically, it's not fascinating letter, but it's really cool to look at. It's a little 1-cent stamp. It's a Benjamin Franklin 1-cent stamp on the corner. So this showed up in a book and went into my file cabinet, and so I'm sharing it with you now. That's all I have for now. And if you would like to share something you found in a book, please send me an email with the picture of the item you found and a little description, and it'd be my pleasure to share it here on Things Found in Old Books. You can send it to me at oldbook@ebookman.com. That's oldbook, no S, at ebookman.com. And I'll be happy to share it. And so I look forward to doing this again next week. And thank you for stopping by. And this is David from the Bookman in Orange saying good day.
Always a pleasure to have David Hess on the show. This is so much fun. All right, let me get back to my co-host, Lee Linn. Lee, you out there somewhere in Ethan?
I'm out here.
Okay, I can't see you yet, but I can hear you, so we can muddle along.
Okay.
All right. Lee,
there we go.
There we go. All right. A little while back, we had the writer Larry Baker on a few weeks ago. You spoke to him a lot about Flannery O'Connor, who was Larry's favorite writer. And as everybody knows, she's
one of mine.
And one of yours. And everybody knows she's a Southern Gothic writer with a wicked sense of humor and grotesque characters in her books. And she lived in Georgia at a place called Andalusia.
Yes.
Andalusia is, I always known it as the southernmost province in Spain.
Yeah, well, it's not.
It's not.
Andalusia is right outside of Milledgeville, Georgia. And
that helps me a lot.
I thought that would help you a lot.
Can you give me a cardinal direction from Atlanta?
Milledgeville is south of Atlanta.
South of Atlanta. All right.
Yeah, Milledgeville is just kind
realm of knowledge.
Kind of south. Yeah, it's kind of in the middle of, not in the middle of the state, but it's let's see, it's southeast of Atlanta.
All right.
It's kind of in the middle. Let's leave it in the middle of the state. It's down in that area. It's down in that area. And she grew up in Savannah, but her mother's
beautiful city.
And her mother and their home there is a national landmark, and you can go visit that. But her mother's family, the Kleins, were from Milledgeville. Flannery's father died of lupus in 1941.
Hmm.
And in 1952, she was diagnosed with the same thing.
Oh dear.
And, that affects joints, it affects mobility, it affects a lot of things. But she got to the point that she really could not function on her own. She came back to Georgia. She had been in New York and Connecticut. She came back to Georgia. She and her mother moved into the Klein home in Milledgeville, and then eventually out to the family farm, Andalusia. It was under the auspices of a private foundation for a long time, but is now preserved and run by Georgia College there in Milledgeville, which was her alma mater. It was Georgia College for Women then, and that was where she went to did undergraduate
What's
work.
the name of the school nowadays?
It's Georgia College.
Georgia College. Okay.
Yeah. And our book club went to visit Andalusia a number of years ago. There we go. That's the outside of the house. It's just a really pretty southern farmhouse. I don't know how many acres it is, but it was a working farm. And she raised peacocks also on the farm. And peacocks show up in later publications of her books, and a bunch of the paperback versions of some of her books feature peacock feathers on the covers, and she was known for her peacocks. She'd always been interested in birds, particularly like chickens and farm birds. But a friend got her interested in peacocks, and she bought some, and then started raising them. And they still have a peacock or two there on the farm. But this is the house. We were talking last week.
Excuse me, Lee. I've also heard this little anecdote of that when she was 6 years old. She loved her feathered friends as well, and that she had a chicken that walked backwards.
And she was featured on I can't remember whether it was a magazine article or a radio show or what it was, but she was. Yes, little Mary. She went by Mary at that point. She didn't become
little Mary O'Connor.
Little Mary O'Connor and her chicken. Yeah, she was.
And when she had become a little more famous, someone asked her about. She would actually tell the story, at which she said, "It was a high point in my life. Everything since has been an anticlimax."
That's right. And I see you've done your research. That's good.
Alan did it for me.
Last week we talked about sleeping porches.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Okay, this is an example of a porch that could be used as a sleeping porch. Mm-hmm. Screened in, screened all the way around so that you can get breezes through there. Wide enough to accommodate cots or single beds. Now this has rocking chairs on it, but it could be used as a sleeping porch. We wanted a picture in front of the house, showing the front of the house, and we were all going to be in there. For those of you who saw the pictures of the book club last week, there are still a fair number of these people who are involved in it. But we had a nice group. One of our members' grandson was in school there at the time in Milledgeville. And after we left Andalusia, he took us on a tour of Milledgeville and the college and the former governor's mansion, because Milledgeville was capital of Georgia. Up to during the Civil War sometime, and so we had a tour of Milledgeville as well. There are some of our members sitting on the front porch in rocking chairs.
Well, at least they're not in a cot.
No, they're not. No, and I can't say for sure they used it that way, but that would have been
It would have been a good segue from last week.
And it would have been a common use. This is Flannery's bedroom, which she lived at Andalusia for 12 years after her diagnosis, going to Atlanta for treatment, actually going to do literary presentations. I think she did maybe 60 during these years. She left home as long as she could. But she got to the point where she was pretty much confined to this. This was her workroom. You see her typewriter on the desk, her crutches. This became her world in the last few years of her life. And this is a self-portrait of her there at Andalusia with the chicken. I think that's the chicken, not a peacock.
Not the peacock.
Her mother took care of her and outlived her. Here we go with peacocks. The one in the to the top, the one on the higher shelf is the female peahen.
And that good-looking fellow on the chair has got to be a male.
Right. Yes. I don't think I have one with the feathers out, but they are amazing. For those of us interested in flowers, the property has a lot. This is we identified it at the time as a Rose of Sharon, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And
well, you're not going to get a disagreement from me.
I know. And then we have Adamasco lily. There's a pond on the property. We went down to the pond. That's an Adamasco lily. And those are wildflower. They are not real common. You have to look for them in Georgia, but we have them around here. But they're really beautiful. This was down by the pond. And this is an unidentified purple flower. I'm not real sure what that was.
You're not going to get disagreement from me.
It's a lovely property. It's open to the public. You know, if you're in central Georgia, go see it.
Stop on by. All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
All right, Lee, it's getting close to us. Time for us to wrap up, but we wanted to give a plug to the book club. What is going on down there?
Well,
Alan gave me a Alan gave me a prelude to this, but I'm just going to read it because I'm confused. If the heart is a lonely hunter, does it go to a Delta wedding? If so, is the barn burning? And is To Kill a Mockingbird wise blood?
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I had asked.
What in the heck is he talking about?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what he's talking about. He's being funny is what he's trying to do. I asked the members of the book club to send me some of their favorite books of the close to 140 that we had read. And best we can figure out, looking at dates, the book club began in about 2004, we think. We decided that we want to be sure to celebrate our 20th anniversary, and we sort of decided we might celebrate it for about 3 years, so we may start celebrating now.
I do the same thing during my birthday week, which turned into
I think birthdays should go on for weeks. So anyway, we're going to do this in several sections, but today's one thing that was interesting in the ones that have come in, and not everyone has sent their list in, and some lists had one book and some lists had half a dozen books. But first of all, the preponderance of the books were fiction, which is probably to be expected since about 75% of what we've read is fiction.
Sure.
And so many of them were Southern writers, classic Southern writers, and we'll start with Flannery O'Connor. She appeared on, I think, 3 of the lists that have come in, not just for Wise Blood, which is a novel, but then we devoted another session just to short stories. We read, of course, A Good Man is Hard to Find. We read Good Country People. We read Everything That Rises Must Converge, and probably several others. And you see the Peacock. This is a paperback edition of the complete stories, and there's the peacock that's featured on that. The copy of Wise Blood is one of the 2 copies that I have available for sale. And one thing that we've responded to in her books and her short stories, and I know there are many times the characters are grotesque, but many times the characters are people that we think we known. For example, in A Good Man is Hard to Find, the family in their car driving to Florida with the grandmother is a scenario that those of us growing up in the 50s and relate to, going on vacation with an elderly relative was very common, and these were things that we recognize. And people who had farms and had hired hands on the farms even though her characters may be exaggerated in many ways, they're characters that
relatable,
that are relatable. That they are characters that are relatable.
Just like that little puppy.
Yeah. Plus, the scenery is relatable. You know, it's familiar. It's familiar territory, and I think that's one thing that's appealing to Southerners or to Georgians about her work. In addition to just this wonderful style of writing and the insights into these people and this kind of thing. But she'll and will appear on other favorite lists, I'm sure. Okay, Faulkner. We read now As I Lay Dying is on my personal list from the book club. It's, I believe, my favorite Faulkner book, and I love the characters in it, and I love the there's just so much about it that is memorable. I just think and so much of it is improbable in so many ways, but it's one of my favorite. It is probably my favorite Faulkner book. But we read a series of short stories by different authors that Bob picked out because he liked those stories, and Barn Burning was one of them, and so one person listed Barn Burning in their list of favorites, and so I included that on there. But we like Faulkner. We all like Faulkner. I had never read much of it until I was in college and took a course in Southern Lit at Emory, and wow, was that an eye opener? That really was.
He was He was actually a visiting professor at my college for a year.
Wow!
And we have a room in our library of all of his furniture while he lived on campus there. Yeah,
well, it's and it's a lot of fun to go to Oxford and go to Roanoke's and tour the home and tour the grounds and everything. That's a lot of fun. All right, this is an interesting one. One member put as his favorite To Kill a Mockingbird. The odd thing is we didn't read To Kill a Mockingbird, partly because we all read it. I mean, for most of us, it came out when we were in high school or college, and we read it, and we've read it, and we've read it, and we've read it.
We watched the movie.
And saw the movie. We did read Go Set a Watchman. And most of us, in preparation for that, reread To Kill a Mockingbird. And so I think that's, where he got that in. We did not think Go Set a Watchman compared favorably to Go Kill a Mockingbird. We were not happy with the depiction of Atticus Finch in the later book. And we did not believe for a minute that it was the original book, which was one of the stories that circulated, that this was what she had originally written, because it didn't make sense without knowing what had happened in the earlier book. Sure. It just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense.
Hey, can I show you something real quick that I picked up?
Sure.
I thought this might be on your list. So this week I happened to pick up a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Not in great condition, a little chipped around the spine, but it is on the front signed by Harper Lee.
Great.
And in the back, it's signed by Horton Foote, who won the Academy Award.
Oh, that is neat. That really is. I had a 10th anniversary copy that was signed by her that I found at an estate sale.
Nice.
And it was on a bookshelf, and the books were all $2. And so when I discovered it, and I said to the ladies running the sale, "Are all these books $2?" And they said, "Yes, all of them are." And so I thought I'd better get that paid and out of there as quick as I could.
I'm taking this one on consignment. It's not my core inventory, but I'm going to try and help you.
Yeah, that's a great find. That really is. So anyway, that one sneaked in, kind of
in the back door.
That's okay. That's okay. It can sneak in. Okay, another popular one for us is Eudora Welty. We read Delta Wedding, but we also read several short stories. And the way we operated on those short stories was we kind of picked out some of our favorites, and each one of us, presented one. This little book of 13 stories by Eudora Welty is my copy, and it's signed by her. I went to Berry College and stood in line for I don't know how long when she was doing a book signing, and that's just a little paperback. It is a first paperback, but still just a paperback. Yep. Got it signed, and it happens to contain 3 of my personal favorites: Why I Live at the P.O., Powerhouse, which is about Fats Waller and is a wonderful story, and The Worn Path. And so we just picked out some of her stories. Each of us picked one out and discussed it. And so Delta Wedding has turned up on 2 different lists so far. And I just sort of threw in the short stories because the people aren't as likely to put on their list short stories unless it's just one particular story that they remember really well. And then The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, another Georgia writer, Carson McCullers. And a lot of people have seen the movie of this. And this, she does not get quite the attention that Flannery O'Connor does, but there are many similarities. Her characters are not as grotesque, but they are flawed in many ways, and characters with disabilities or problems, this sort of thing. And so she's is popular around here as well. So those are the big Southern. That's the Southern group.
That's the cream of the crop.
The cream of the Southern crop. There are of course many others, but these kind of focus on 2 states, as you can tell, Georgia and Mississippi. Right. And one thing we haven't read a lot of that we probably should at some point to round out the Southern thing are the agrarians, who many of those are Tennessee writers. So we really haven't focused too much on those. But
Lee, maybe you could pop this list up on our Facebook page sometime so that other people listening in could add it to their reading list as well.
Okay, can do that.
Right, very good.
And another day we'll discuss some non-Southern writers and some of the things that we have liked. We're not real sure about whether we're going to talk about ones we didn't like or not. Though we've had some fairly strong opinions on those too.
As Larry pointed out earlier in the show, it's been a learning experience for me. I have not read many Southern writers, and I have learned a great deal over the last several months from your book club, and thank you for sharing.
Sure.
All right, folks, it's that time, which is the end time, or at least the end time of this show. If you like what you heard, let us know. Leave us a comment on our Facebook page, or send us an email to rarebookcafe@gmail.com. Don't forget to go check out Wonderland 100 for the 100 children's books of Larry Rakow's opinion all time. And Richard Mori will be back soon. Anyways, coming up next week, folks, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, Lee.
All right.
Bye-bye. Over and out.
Bye-bye.